Yeah, I couldn't get sound to work. Hey guys, should be back. Really sorry about that. I'm gonna wait just a second. Test, test, test. Are we back? Are we back? Sorry about that, guys. This was episode 110. Now it's episode 110, take 2. Yelling at flowers. Let's make sure everything's working. 124 179. Yep, you hear me now. Sorry about that, guys. Shake it off. Screaming at Flowers, episode 110. Rachel, thank you so much for the super chat, especially after I stumbled there. Loving up on compassion requires growing pains. Some keep drugging themselves not to feel. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. I'd like us to consider that we've been yelling at flowers for a long time now. I'd like you also to know that that's about the most hypocritical thing I've said in at least 4 or 5 days. We all yell at flowers. We all think it helps too. So you guys don't see me on YouTube, huh? No working on YouTube, huh? Okay. Let's get you over to D Live because I don't know how to fix that. Yeah, exactly. Here you go, guys. Here's a D Live link. Thanks, Shitmoth. You guys just have to jump over to D Live today, which we welcome you there. So if Facebook isn't working, if YouTube isn't working, just come on over. Oh, okay. Well, this is driving me nuts. All right. Apparently everything is good. There's just not everyone thinks that it's good. All right. I think the best lesson in compassion would probably be to have compassion for me as I try and pull this live stream off. I think that's a good exercise for all. This is a gift of all, and all of you have been gifted. You're welcome. You're welcome. So see what you could do with that. Yeah. Whew. I had a nice run this morning. It was a short run. I probably should have spent that time making sure my microphone worked. But I wanted to burn calories to bring back that sacrifice to the stream. I wanted to bring that energy to it. I wanted to worship that time climbing hills and worship the struggle it took, the vitriol I felt, accomplishing that task and bringing that confidence back to the stream itself. Especially right now, because although it's all good, we're now down subscribers by 10-15% on D Live. Took a huge, not a huge, but a kind of a similar hit on YouTube yesterday. And as we progress through these things, it requires a different electrical field to sustain and carry on. It's like Amazing Polly has struck again, basically, but not as hard. Oddly, not as hard. That tells me something, which is always a good sign. We are going to keep going, guys. And the way we're going to keep going is diving deeper into compassion. The people that still don't know that compassion is not consent, I don't think that you're ever going to be able to hear this message. I think that there's probably an electrical field, a circuit in you that has linked those two things together. And it's fused in such a way to where my voice doesn't have the ability to break that. It's going to require something else. In fact, you may need that for a while. You may need to keep that circuit, right? Keep that circuit and keep running. Because each of us, I would be yelling at flowers to tell you that you need to know the difference between compassion and consent. That would be me yelling at flowers. And I think Black Lives Matter is the perfect exercise for all of us to learn that. The truth of the matter is is that if you have compassion for someone who believes in Black Lives Matter, then what you really are doing is you're able to change your aperture down to where that is compassionate. And that is possible. There are many people that have that as their compassion threshold. Those same people do not see as many branches in the tree of compassion. It's important to think about it like a dimension. Compassion is a dimension that's never been seen before. It's a dimension that only exists in humanity. Oddly, compassion and morality are the same. They are made of the same stuff, right? Morality and compassion do not exist outside of man's belief in it, outside of man's essence or his ability to either discern it or produce it or cultivate it in others, right? That compassion is a dimension, and that dimension is explorable by all of us. It's why we're here. We're here to find these nooks and crannies. We're here to struggle over them, right? We're here to fight over them even. We're here to tell each other, no, that's not compassion. We're here to tell each other, no, that's my compassion. It doesn't belong to you. This is treasure hunting. All of us are hunting for treasure here, whether that be morality, whether that be truth, whether that be compassion. And if the entire world was not buried in lies, there would be no quest for gold. There would be no digging for truth. Truth would simply be there. It would have no preciousness about it. Like yesterday when someone asked, how could my mother dying be a good thing? How could that be compassionate? How could that be something that I could ever find compassion for? And we discover that all death is the birth of preciousness, of life. That if it was not for death, none of us would even understand what life is, what it actually is. We would pretend we do. In fact, we pretend to understand life now by claiming how much we hate death. And that's not really understanding life at all. That's being afraid of life. So compassion is not something that is universal. It's very much like truth. And that's something that makes people uncomfortable. It's why Zionism actually is so effective. It's why the market has placed Zionism kiosks in every school, in every government building, in every mall, in every military base. Because we find comfort in the idea that there's only one truth. We claim that anyone who thinks that there's more than one truth is evil. In fact, we had to create a word evil so that we could keep them in that field. There's one of the original Superman movies has a mirror. And these three dudes are trapped in this mirror. I think one of them's a chick. They're trapped in this mirror, this dimension, this two-dimensional prison of reflection, where all they could do is reflect on themselves. And Zionism casts people into these prisons by saying, you're not Christian, or you're not Jewish, or you're not Islam, or whatever it is. We all have these opportunities, thanks to things like Zionism, to cast people out of the light, and that light is what we call truth. And this makes us selfish. It turns us into hunters, and we get angry when we see other light not shining on our target. We attack it. We find it threatening. And we start to categorize it, and we start to assign it. Yesterday, somebody I respect a lot made some comments on my video explaining how important it was that if you didn't think truth was absolute, that you were always going to be lost, that you were never going to find your way to that. And I think in a lot of ways, the only way we could survive in this world growing up was to have that notion, was to believe that there was only one truth. That's a tool. It allows you to jab and stab deeper into the earth, to dig deeper to find that gold. But guys, we are experts now at this. And as experts know, there's more ways to find gold. That digging one tunnel isn't necessarily the most effective strategy. That gold is found all over. And sometimes it doesn't require the same depth that you personally have invested to find yours. Sometimes Black Lives Matter is gold. Why? Because it's encouraging someone to be compassionate for something outside of themselves. It's encouraging someone to try and understand empathy. My biggest arrogance and flaw in all of this has been expecting other people to have the same depth of compassion as I do. And when I say depth, I don't mean volume, I don't mean amperage, I strictly just mean depth. To be completely fair, someone in a Black Lives Matter mindset could have more compassion than me. It simply only penetrates the soil so deep. It's a different kind of watering, isn't it? I'm a deep root compassionist. Most of the people that listen to this stream are deep root compassionists. They are exploratory. They're looking for deeper waters. And I love you guys. That's awesome. Let's keep doing that. And one of the ways we can find those deeper waters is understanding that all the roots that are above us have their truth too. And those roots are never going to be able to understand that there are many truths. They're not ready for that. They don't even need to be ready for that. They're not having to push through the same clay, the same hardened rock as we do. Ours is a different journey down to the waters. Ours requires a different kind of root. And the only way we're going to survive now is to look at all the roots above us, as tiny as they may seem, or as shallow as they may seem, and understand that they're feeding us too. That they're allowing us to go deeper by letting us look at Black Lives Matter and see that there's truth in that too. And that's a tall order. It's about as tall as seeing through the political parties. It's about as tall as seeing through a woman's right to choose. These are difficult things. That's why they're deep. And that's why only some of you are going to make it. That's why only some of us are going to make it around the same fire at night after a long day of travel. And we'll either notice that each other made it, or we'll notice that each other didn't. And that's what's happening all around you, right? People that you think are your allies have simply chosen a different depth. I think everyone has truth. And I don't think that these people lose it, even though I forget that sometimes. Because they're all steps. The Jacob's ladder is real. The hermetic secret society that all of us are terrified of is something that we've been initiated in without knowing it. It's the secret society of compassion, really. It's this new way of looking at things. And it's hard. It burns calories. It makes enemies. It gets names thrown at you. And the deeper you go, the more you realize that there's water in those roots too. So I welcome all the electricity, especially lately. I am an AC truth seeker. My current goes both ways. Cast whatever you want at me. The attention makes me grow. That time of thought, the little comments that I see that build up into really big ideas, take me places I never would have gone before, and that only would have happened with your vitriol over my message, over what I've said. As this audience has grown, I've had to change my approach to comments at large. When I'm talking about comments at large, I'm talking about like Twitter. I'm talking about there's a shallowness to investigation that happens on Twitter, which I actually like, because you're allowed to throw quick little photons at each other and see how they stick. And those photons, depending on how they're received, give me insight. It's almost like a divination. It's almost like I'm scrying for water, because I can throw a tidbit out, and just from the electricity of that, it gives me an understanding as to the capacity for it to be used for truth. That electricity isn't always good. It's really not. It's, in fact, a lot of times it is bad. If I looked at the comments in some of the last of my 3 or 4 videos, there's a lot more bad comments in there. There's a lot more. And all I see that is this is fuel. But I'm taking it further, guys. Those aren't bad comments. That's compassion. Those are people wrestling with their compassion. They're wrestling with these ideas. How in the hell did that guy say evil doesn't exist? Right? They can't imagine a world where evil doesn't exist. They want to give me hypothetical examples where evil does exist. And every time they do, I have to tell them, I no longer accept hypotheticals anymore. Because hypothetical is a disassociated world. It's a world of Platonism. It's a world where there's only one truth, and you either know it or you're a gamma fag. And that's not my world. I've never lived in that world. I haven't lived in that world since I discovered pragmatism. Something we talked about the other day. Pragmatism's only test of probable truth is what works best in the way of leading us, what fits every part of life best and combines with the collectivity of experience's demands, nothing being omitted. And when you do that math, you will never, ever, 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 ever have a full equation. I just fed an unsalted peanut to a red squirrel. The pragmatism of that is a ripple. The truth is a ripple that branches from that squirrel and branches out. And there are ways that I don't know. When I drop that pebble into the water of giving that peanut to that squirrel, I honestly don't know what's going to happen as a result of that action. I can simulate and I can predict. And when we are in this kindergarten state here in Dojo Earth, which is nothing to be ashamed of, we should embrace it. We learn the difference between intent and action. Most of us live our life thinking that as long as we intend something good, it's morally good. That's literally, most of us think that that's how the world works. Most of your Democrat verbiage is based on that idea, right? Most of your Republican verbiage is based on that idea, but they're from different poles. But both of them are preaching a morality that what is moral is what is intended. And in fact, we even have that in law, right? We punish based on the intent of someone, as if we could prove that. As if our intent is a replacement for what actually happens. And I think what ends up happening when you go down this road is you end up disassociating everyone from their responsibilities. If that was a salted peanut, that squirrel might have a reaction, right? If it's oversalted, it might have a reaction. If that's all I did every day was feed that red squirrel peanuts every single day, it might not be healthy for him. If I gave him a peanut, it might make him delay later He might run out in front of a car, and Jesus might be driving by and have a horrible accident and die. We don't know the truth. We really don't know if you truly follow that formula. You'll never ever be able to track that tornado all the way across to China where a butterfly is beating its wings, right? Guys, you don't know the result of these actions, nor do we know the results of believing in Black Lives Matter, nor do we know the end results of wearing a mask. I think our most powerful weapon here is witness. I've been doing that to myself. Yesterday it was pouring rain. It was pouring rain. And we left something out on top of the car, and I wanted to go get it. And when I started to go outside, I grabbed my hat. I was looking for like a coat. I was going to grab a coat. And I opened the door because I didn't want to get wet. I didn't want to get my shirt wet, right? Because I didn't want to change my shirt. And I decided, I'm not approaching this with vitriol. This is like the exact opposite of how I want to have this experience. So I took off my hat and I took off my shirt. And instead of running outside to the car, I walked as slow as I possibly could. Every step was deliberate. It was like a tea ceremony with God. Every step. And I swear, it felt like I didn't get wet. And I did get wet. But it wasn't the same kind of feeling. It was beautiful. I had compassion for the rain. Do you understand? I had compassion for it. It wasn't ruining my day, it was providing it. It wasn't ruining my experience, it was creating it for me in real time. And it wasn't a fake experience, like someone saying something nice as they tell you you're misguided, right? Oh God, he's so fucked up, but boy, I really wish him well. It's real, that's all. It's authentic. I want to have these experiences all the time. And honestly, when I'm hearing things said about me, I've reached this level where I can feel the electricity of it. I can feel this this change in me. And it doesn't matter how cheesy this sounds, because I want you to know, I've never really been able to listen to subtle energy. Honestly, it's never been a thing that I could do. I've been around others that have. I've been around others that have enough to where I know it's real, which has always kind of been like, it's interesting, James, that you can't see that. And I'd like to learn to see that. But it's never been something that you've never catch me saying, oh, that dude has an aura, or oh, the energy here or there or whatever. I have seen the Brown Mountain Lights. There's just a few miles from here, there's a place called Brown Mountain. And up that valley, there are orbs that are floating up and down through the valley. And I've seen those. I've gone there to look for those, and we saw them. It was really great. We had soup. It was a great time. No drugs involved. It's just, there they were. I don't know what they are. I don't understand what they are. I didn't feel them. I only saw them. All I did was see them. The reason why I'm saying all this is because the other day, Owen was putting some vitriol into my fire. You know, he was like, James, I believe in you. Here's some vitriol. You're going to use this for alchemy. And I wasn't watching that stream. I'm not that powerful of a wizard where I can directly watch that. I wouldn't want to be that. Honestly, I wouldn't want to be that powerful. I'd rather use my skills elsewhere. But as that stream was happening, not while I was watching, but as it was happening, I was feeling these connections like tentacles in my chest, snapping off. Pow, 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 pow. And I swear, I think I was feeling people hit unsubscribe. I swear I was hearing prana pull from me as if cut off, as if fuck James, fuck James, fuck that guy. And even that, all it was vitriol. Like as that was happening, I felt like a baby who had never had a new kind of candy, because I was experiencing, without even seeing it, just knowing that it was happening, maybe possibly in real time. I didn't even know that because no one had reported back what was being said. I just felt it. And it's weird because for weeks I've been telling my friends after the live stream, I think I probably mentioned it here too, but sometimes after the live stream, I'll be walking through the house and all of a sudden I'll go, "Whoa, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I said that on the live stream," I'll say. And I'll tell myself that sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes in the middle of the shower, sometimes in the middle of the store, whatever. And it shocks me. It jolts my whole body. And it's beautiful. It's fantastic because that only happens because I do a live stream. People are always giving me great advice. Hey, James, try not to cuss or try and focus on this or try. And I'm trying. I swear I'm trying. But there's this genuine rawness that comes out in this format that brings an authenticity to you that I'd rather you get the authenticity, even though it's peppered with just poor, retarded language sometimes. In fact, you could even argue that is the dirt in the spaghetti sauce, right? You know that you're camping with friends because you're getting that dirt from my spaghetti sauce, right? You know that pan fell, and I picked up that saucepan of spaghetti sauce, and everyone was out in the canoe, and I knew they were going to want to eat, and I just wanted the live stream to flow. And so it comes with that. I scoop that sauce back into the pan, and I just stir it. I add more cheese. I do whatever I can to make it better. Because my truth is not your truth. But my truth is going to be as authentic as I can possibly make it. Dark-eyed Junko. His name's Steve. He's not playing in Babylon either. He gave up that long ago. Steve actually does have a bad foot. You can see that, his left foot, but it seems to be getting better. See the lean? He's gangster leaning. Three months ago, I didn't have compassion for Steve. Meaning I didn't understand he had a bad leg. I didn't. It's only because I've gone deeper, right? It's only because my root has gone deeper that I know that. But if anyone would have seen Steve 3 months ago and not known he had a bad leg, they would have had compassion for Steve too. They still would have had a truth. Mine's just deeper. It's not even more correct. Deeper sounds like, oh, that means you're better at it. I don't mean it that way. If I could find a way to traverse this, but really the analogy is perfect. Why? Because the deep root doesn't get light, does it? The only way anyone notices a deep root is when the whole thing's pulled. You're never going to get credit, guys, for swimming this deep with me. It's not going to happen. People I know and trust can't share this information. It's too problematic. And that's why you're so awesome to be here. Because we're not here for light as much as we're here for water. Being down this deep, we know what makes us grow. We know what makes us change. I'm going to play you guys something.
corner of 5th Avenue and 34th Street in the center of New York's shopping district stands the world's tallest building, 1,248 feet high, the Empire State Building. It's a gigantic place filled with offices and workers, almost a business city on its own. A building with express lifts and wonderful views that attract all visitors. This was the scene of the recent plane crash. It happened when workers were at their desks on a Saturday morning between 9 and 10 o'clock. Miles away, a Mitchell bomber had taken off from Bedford, Massachusetts. The pilot, flying over LaGuardia airfield, was advised to land because of fog. But he headed for Newark instead along what he thought was this route. The route he actually took led him straight through the fog into the Empire State Building. The plane crashed into the 78th and 79th stories at a speed of about 200 miles an hour. It smashed through 7 walls. Blazing petrol set 11 stories of the building on fire. No one knew what had happened. The wildest rumors spread through New York. But firemen were on the job, and in very quick time, they had the fires out. "13 lives, in addition to those of the crew of 3, were lost instantly. Many others received burns, injuries, and shock. One body was found on a ledge 7 stories down. The scene, in fact, both in the building and in the street, was reminiscent of an incident in a blitz. The death roll, tragic as it was, seemed miraculously small. One of the plane's props was found embedded in the wall. One of the lifts plunged down 80 floors. One of the Mitchell's engines crashed almost 1,000 feet below. The other hurtled across the building and fell on the penthouse on the roof of a 12-story building in the next street. Other parts of the bomber crashed into the busy 34th Street, yet no one down there was injured. Here it also looked like an incident, but 2 days later the Empire State Building was open again. Business as usual, in fact.
2 days later, the Empire State Building was back open again. A literal plane hit the towers. 11 floors were damaged, but the building still stands today. I can't think of a better example to show you these levels of compassion than 9/11. It's so profound how you actually look at a spiral staircase. Level 1 is everything you were told was real, right? Babies in incubators, WMDs, 19 hijackers with 19 box cutters. No one knew it was coming. Military was caught off guard. They'd never, ever, ever even simulated or planned the idea that a plane could be flown into a building. And if you didn't have compassion for that, you were considered cruel and inhumane. You were taught this is what compassion is. Compassion is this story. And most of us were affected by that. All of us were initiated into the dissonance. We were initiated to believe because of tragedy. The tragedy itself forced everyone on board. Believe. And of course we did. That's what happens during a tragedy. Everyone comes together. You come together under one thought, under one belief. That truly is the making of the tower, isn't it? The forming of the tower of belief happens through tragedy. If you can imagine a cymatic device, right? They put all the sand on a flat plane and they run a note. All that sand collects. It becomes one. It becomes the vibration itself. And the tremors of that lie brought everyone together under one belief, one truth. And that was the only form of compassion. And most of us are at that level still. Most of us have not reached the level of Emerson or Thoreau or James or Whitman. Most of us are on the idea that morality comes from outside of us and that we do not decide what is moral or not, that we are not capable of those things, that we do not have the faculties to determine those things. And those same people that are there now have compassion, and they know truth. And it's an initiation. It's a part of the step. And they'll either rise up the stairs or go down the stairs or stay where they are. Every step on the stair is legit. My stepdad believes in 9/11, and he's a good, compassionate person. He is. My stepdad thinks that I should be working third shift at a factory somewhere because of my social autism. And he is full of compassion, and he loves me. I know that. But it only goes so deep. He only sees so much of what he can. Just as when I tell you that evil is a farce, that by creating the word evil, it's literally generating the excuse in us to find evil in the world. That if we're going to pretend that that word is legit, if we're going to pretend that there is even a definition of evil, evil, adjective, profoundly immoral and wicked. Wicked, adjective, evil or morally wrong. That what evil truly means is not the morality that we think they should have. Guys, deep in the soil, that's the truth. That what we call evil is someone who does not share our morality, which would make my stepdad have to call me evil when he tells me 9/11 was done by box cutters and I was to guffaw, right? If I was to laugh at that. That persecution makes his compassion and his truth cemented inside of him. That cements it for him. And if I cannot handle the vitriol, it unseats my compassion. And if we live in our world where we define morality by anyone who does not have our morality as immoral, then we will slowly turn into Zeitgeistian meat puppets. We will become the pellet given to us. We will feed off the morality that's dispensed on the screen. And it will always be more profitable to toe the line. It already is. Our entire political system is based on the myth that 19 people with no military experience at all, using a box cutter, were able to thwart the world's most advanced, most trained, most disciplined, most honorable, most effective fighting force in known history. And that truth requires my stepdad to look at everyone in the military and say, you failed. You failed to protect the one thing you were supposed to protect, our borders. Not only did you fail that, but you also failed stopping the plane before it even got there. It was a systemic failure on every level. And that truth requires every veteran to take a fall, to take a knee, to say, yeah, I failed that. And that is that top 2 layers of soil. That's the top 2 layers. And you've gone way past that. I've gone way past that. You've gone so far down that you recognize the word Zionism. You understand that like compassion is not consent, so too is Zionism not Judaism. You see that. And the slings and arrows, the lack of sunlight does not stop your root, because your root wants the water of truth and it keeps going. It goes deeper. It goes so deep that you start to understand the very people that are calling themselves morally good, the very people that are claiming that they know truth, the very people that they are the most compassionate because of Jesus, because of Zionism, because of America, that those people are what's moral and what's good. But your root knows that's not true. Your root keeps going deeper. And you've gotten so deep that you found James True telling you these new ideas. Telling you these ideas like the gift of Baal. Telling you we have to redefine these words. And people I really respect will say, you're redefining words, that means you're wrong. Or they'll show such a small ability of compassion for my thought that they'll say, you must be Jordan Peterson because you're redefining words. And because I'm so deep in this, I have to look and go, well, wait, whoa. If we can't define what words mean, why the bloop are we exchanging language? Why are we even using language? If we've decided that anyone before us, eons and eons ago, decided what words were, and we had to stick with those definitions, why are we playing that game? In fact, if we assume that that's right, that we can't redefine words, why is it that only whitecoats can make words? A whitecoat can invent a word, and none of us give a problem with that. A whitecoat can even say, this word that you thought meant this is actually that. I don't redefine every word, do I? I keep saying the same words over and over that I redefine. These are very strategic, surgical words that need redefinition. And until you redefine them, you're going to be evacuated. You came here evacuated. That's your prerequisite to even watch me. You are the morning star rising. You are. You've been in darkness, and you believe a golden dawn is coming. You believe that. You're looking around at everyone in masks. That's the darkness still. That is the pre-dawn. But you're Venus. You're showing the world something is coming. The light is coming. I can see the light from here. You guys will see it soon too. And that requires compassion. It requires this new skill that we have. And it's not even hard. Put yourself in that moment right now. Ask yourself what time it is and tell yourself it's right now. The next time you have to do something difficult, is it scrubbing a toilet? Is it running hills? Is it going to fetch something in the downpour? Is it trying to buy something from a store without having to get in a fight about a mask? All of these are vitriol. Owen Benjamin is my gift of Baal. And it's fantastic. That guy is so real and so authentic. And as the confusion drips from his teeth, and as he shakes his fist, all I see is someone authentic. And I fucking love that guy for it. And all of you that have written that this is over, and fuck this guy, or all of you have written, and fuck that guy. Please look at this vitriol. Please look at your reaction to this and see it as vitriol. I want you to look at that reaction to it and go, wait a minute. Is this bad? Is this really bad? Because it's not. It's not bad at all. The worst thing Owen could do to me is fucking be nice. It's the worst thing he could do. It would be the most disrespectful thing he could pull. He's not nice. He's authentic, right? And look at I can use my compassion and look at what he's done, where he's been, and where he's at now. I can see that. I can only see that because I redefined some words, guys. I redefined some words. And I get to do that. I get to do that. You get to do that. Jim Bob, you're a fucking genius, dude. You get to do that. This is your language too. It is. Ego is not a bad word. And I can prove it by showing you how much compassion I have in the most genuine way I can. I can feel that. I can close my eyes and go, I can go deeper. I can find this deeper. And in order for this to do that, I've had to change about 4 or 5 words in my vocabulary. I had to change them because they weren't correct. And I think some of you guys have decided because I'm redefining words, it means I must be evil. That I must be a moral relativist, maybe. Or I must be satanic. Or I must be Luciferian. Or I must be gay. Or I must be a gamma. And what I must be is someone who's genuinely, authentically mining truth. And someone who's noticed, I can get through this rock. There's more water under this rock. But my root's going to need to bend in a way it's never bent before. Ego's not a bad word. That's step 1. Pride is directly proportional to the depth I can sink with my compassion. I need pride. I need ego. I need those fuels to be so strong that they can reach the end of a root as it stretches and twists around all this bedrock, as it slips its way under that and deeper and deeper and deeper. I need more push at the top. I need more push right there at the surface. So ego is a good word. Pride is a good word. And I need to strive. I need there to be more joy in my quest. I no longer want to be motivated by the crook and flail. That's how we've been motivated by truth because we were young. That's how you motivate a youngling. You use shame and fame. Shame and fame. I'm proud of you, son. I'm disappointed in you, son. I'm proud of you, son. I'm disappointed in you, son. That's only so much training a root can have. I'm only going to be propelled by this outside approval. But my root's going deep. It's not going outside. It's going down. It's going underground. It's going into the vile, the vile, the salt, the Sheol. That's a power that requires an internal constitution. It requires an internal light. It requires an internal belief. I can no longer function with shame or fame. With the angel and the devil, I need something deeper. And I find my compassion. And it is a fucking bright light. I'm like fucking Superman with it. I can... And that compassion shows me where to go. It shows me where to squirm. It shows me how to reach. And look at what happens when I tell you about compassion. Look at the vitriol that comes back on these lessons. Look at what happens when you try and tell people there's no evil. No one's like, hey, that sounds like great news. Tell me more. Maybe there's some, but most aren't. Most are like, that scares me. Do not tell me more. Don't you dare redefine language. Don't you dare take words and tell me they don't mean that. Don't you tell me that morality doesn't come from outside of me. Don't you tell me that logos doesn't come from outside of me. And you start to have conversations you never were willing to have. You'll get angry over discussions about the Trinity. You will. You'll be like, I don't even fucking know what this means. And the reason why you don't know what this means is because you don't have the language yet. And that's what I'm doing. I don't have it yet. But I'm taking these arrowheads, buddy. I'm making new ones. I'm making arrow hooks. I'm making arrow flails. I'm making arrow halberds. I'm making all kinds of arrowheads. And each of them has their own purpose and their own tool. And I don't fuck around. I'm not doing this to be funny. You know how many calories I have to spend telling everyone that ego is not what they think it is? That's a daily effort. If there was like a national ed council and also a national ego council, I would be on that council. Like, yes, every day we have to increase and fortify ego in everyone's diet. That's me. No one's paying me for that. That's expensive. It's worth it. The words that I choose are always expensive for me to change. The moment I pull them on the chopping block and say, hey guys, let's dissect this. People are like, whoa, 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 whoa. No. Don't you do that. We are not in charge of words, James. Plato is. And that's the result of materialism, S.A. Materialism. They told you a long time ago it was all material. And it's not. It's not. You know what the sacred feminine is? Check this out. The sacred feminine isn't even an object. No, it's not. You're almost there when you say chalice. You're almost there. But chalice doesn't even work. The sacred feminine is the relationship between two things. The sacred feminine is a relationship. It's not a thing. This is male. This is male. The relationship between is female. But when you're in materialism, there's not even a language for relationship. There's not. I've had to resurrect plasma, electricity, prana, right? Not once will I ever say loosh. Never. Because to call it loosh is to misunderstand its electricity. It's a flow. Asynchronous flow. I hate you, James. Here, have a cookie. I love you, James. Here, have a cookie. All it is cookies. The only thing that's going to make it evil is if I do not have the capacitor to store that power and redirect it. Is if I do not have a transducer with enough amperage current to handle that sort of flow. I have that circuitry because I had to reinvent my language. I had to retool it. Guys, there is no universal archetypal realm where morality exists first. You might as well be believing in reptilian blue space chickens. You might as well say, I don't need to work or wish or do anything because the blue space chicken is coming and he's going to fix everything. That's what happens when you think there's this absolute platonic realm of morality. You don't even notice that it requires disassociation. You can't even feel that it's pulling yourself right out of your chest. That compass in you, the golden compass, it's pointing to you. It's pointing to your true north. And it's your job to fuck up. It's your job to say, I really thought north was here. And wow, here I am in South America. It's why you're here. You're supposed to mess up. You're supposed to dig, you're supposed to dive. And you're not supposed to fall for these tricks. These are all gifts of Baal. And if you look around, all of it is consent. How can you call someone evil if all they're doing is asking for your consent? You don't know they're lying. I know it seems like they're lying, but you actually don't know the intent in their head. And if you believe in evil, you're going to find that it's basically a fucking dumpster, that you can just dump whatever you want to in it. You create evil by believing in it. With compassion, you go, why is Don Pettit saying we went to the moon? How does that work? And when you look at Don Pettit more with compassion, you start to understand, oh, he's massively autistic. He's spectrum autistic. There's only going to be certain things that his reality is able to absorb. Is Don Pettit evil? Or is he autistic? More importantly, is Don Pettit the reason why you believe we went to the moon? Or are you the reason why we believe we went to the moon? And if you have enough ego, you know the answer. Because you can spend the calories on it. You have the electricity in your capacitor, the thing you no longer hate, your ego, to say, oh, I was wrong. I'm going to have to spend some ego giving it witness. Like when I'm walking through that hallway a few hours after stream and I say, oh, I can't believe I said that. That's an alchemical transaction. And I'm trying to get more comfortable with it. I'm trying to make it where I embrace all the vitriol. I want to embrace vitriol because all it's doing is making me a freaking compassion juggernaut. And it doesn't matter how many people hate me or how many people unfollow me or whatever. I love myself. I trust myself. I know that I am the best diviner of compassion that I will ever find in this world because it requires my cockpit to see it. And I see that all the time. I see where I have compassion for something and someone else isn't able to do that. I also see the opposite, where I don't have compassion for something. Absolutely. But that's the vitriol that I want to embrace. I want to look at those moments as if you found a rare red pheasant in the forest. And you're like, oh, there it is. There it is. And that's why I try and redefine fear sometimes, but I get too much pushback, so I can't. I have to stop on fear. There's these words that I try, but you guys aren't ready for it yet. I'm just talking about the overall audience, so I have to pull back and go, okay. But fear is one of those things. What we're calling fear is pure raw energy. Because we call it the word fear, we now have the ability to reject that raw energy instantly. We can say, well, I was afraid and I core dumped it, right? You open the airlock, all that energy goes out. It's no longer in the dilithium crystals. The core dump has been dumped by Scotty because the captain told him, I'm afraid. This guy's like, well, hey. And the captain needs to tell Scotty, I'm empowered. I'm not afraid. I'm empowered. And Scotty, your limbic system, will pick you back up on the radio and say, Captain, no problem. No problem. Engines are hot. Everything's normal. Oil, pressure level, temperature, it's all good. You got it, man. We're here for you. And that really is that voyage of the Dawn Treader. That really is that new light. That is the story of Prometheus. And the electrical resistance that I get from it is proof it's true. It's proof. Because if it wasn't true, those people wouldn't be freaking out so much. They'd simply go, this is boring. This guy's boring me. He's not telling me anything that's making me think or challenge me. He's just boring. That's the power of authenticity, showing you itself in real time. But if you reject negative energy, you'll always miss it. You'll always understand that, oh, negatives, oh, I must be telling a lie. Or, oh. We find this fire every day. We find it. It's every day. It's like reading Mein Kampf, really. One of the most depressing books I've ever read. Just because as you're reading it, you're just like, fuck, this is not the story I was sold. This is not the story I was sold. And you realize that there's no joy in that. you know that the next time you hear a conversation where someone tells you how evil and terrible and how important, and you're just like, fuck. If you read Mein Kampf, and they're like, no, of course not, I would never read that. And you're like, okay. It's compassion. It's the same compassion I have for my stepdad because of 9/11. My dad told me, I was like, Dad, don't you think that psychopathy is real? Don't you think that there would be a international mafia just like there would be a city mafia, just like there would be a nation mafia? And he says to me, no, I don't see why anyone would want to do that. And that's where his root is. That's where his compassion is. And I could give you stories about how much my dad has sacrificed his life for his sister, for my mom, for me. I can show you instances where he astounds me in compassion by miles and miles, by light years. His truth is true. My truth is true. And neither one of us need fucking Plato to tell us about it. Because even if he doesn't see it, how can he? How can you see it if the aperture's not right? You guys remember aperture, right? This idea that your perspective is changeable, that there's new data that's completely revealed or hidden based on the slide of an aperture. Guys, truth is not universal because freedom is not universal, because sovereignty is not universal, because morality is not universal. You've misunderstood your role here. You thought it was to get jiggy with it and buy stuff. You can do that. But you're here to generate truth. You're here to generate morality. You're here to generate logos. And you're here to find all three of those things. You're here to carve them from the stone. And you're here to get 90% of the way through, and one false move and the nose comes off. And you got to start all the way over. And that vitriol is a blessing because you take it to the next sculpture. And then its arm falls off. And that vitriol, you take it to the next sculpture. And now you're building something as big as the statue of David, right? Now you're making big, big stuff. And you could only find that big stuff if you had enough ego, if you had enough compassion, if you had the depth to go that far. This is all about amperage. You're absolutely right, Brick Bear. This is all about amperage and flow. What is your emotional reaction to vitriol? That will directly determine the amount of alchemy that's about to transpire through you. What is your reaction to that vitriol? Stop being right. Stop being right. Be authentic. There's really no such thing as right. And I know that that sounds horrible. I know that that sounds horrible because now you're spinning and living in this new world where everything's hard. And if you want, you can look at it like satanic relativism. You can call it all that. If you need to, you can call it all that. I don't mind. But truth comes from my bones. My work, my compassion comes from my bones and my muscle, my blood. All of these things come from inside me. God put them there. God put them there so I would tell them to you. Just like He put them in you so you would tell them to me. You are the arbiter of compassion. You are its mother, its father, its teacher, its protector, and its artist. And this is a call for alchemists. That's what it is. Don't step up here if you're afraid of morality. Don't step up here if you're afraid of truth. Don't step up here if you're afraid of aperture. Don't step up here if you can't discern compassion from consent. Don't. This isn't the place for you. Where you are is perfect. Where Owen Benjamin is perfect. Where I am is perfect. Be authentic. Don't be right. You'll never be right, guys. It'll never happen. You'll only be more or less authentic. It's a spectrum. It's not a binary. It's a spectrum. All those things are. Dimensions. Truth is a dimension. Compassion is a dimension. And that's the initiation, isn't it? Level 1, 9/11 was real. Level 2, 9/11 was real, and it was an inside job. Level 3, 9/11 wasn't even real, and it was an inside job. Level 4, they exposed Building 7 on purpose. That's vitriol to hear that. Level 5, they did this so I would wake up. They did this so I'd wake up. They did this so I would wake up. You'd never, ever see that if you believed in evil, if you believed in shitting on the ego, if you believed in Zionism, if you believed in zeitgeist, if you believed there was only one answer. You'd never reach that 5th level. And it's there. I can prove it. Watch my streams. Watch how many people are responding to this. Watch how the phrase, best apocalypse ever, rolls off your tongue. Because I was only able to see that truth by climbing to level 5. And it's freaking beautiful. All the pain's still there, guys. All the violations of natural law are still there. Don't worry. All the horror and terror that you see in the world is still there. But we're looking at it through new eyes. We're looking at it with a new kind of electricity. And we're seeing something profound. That every circuit we find has the word compassion on it. It runs through a compassion logic somewhere along the line. And it shows you how detailed and how important it was for the architect of this place to make sure that everything functioned off that consent. The deepest scaffolding that you find in this earth, in this world, runs off consent. Yes, you can certainly find horrible things. You can find people that are responding to their own dissonance, to their own levels, to their own compassion horribly. Of course you can. And those are transactions, aren't they? Those are all electrical transactions between two people. The slave and the master have made an electrical connection with each other. They've both decided, let's invent something called slavery. Required both a master and a slave for that relationship to form. Both of those require consent. The world wants you to think if you have a certain amount of melanin, you're not smart enough to have consent. You don't have the ability to have consent. And you know that's not true because you're a human too. Because you've looked in your cockpit and you're like, dude, the morality meter's right here. It's not a HUD outside. I don't get a radio call telling me there's morality coming in. No, I have morality bogeys. I have a chart right here. It blinks red. Danger. Danger. This is not moral. That's my body. That's my cockpit telling me that. And if I'm evacuated, I can take white out and I can paint with color and put electrical tape, whatever you want to say, over that light. And I can turn that morality off, but only if I come out of the cockpit. Because when I'm in the cockpit, that buzzer makes way too much noise. You have no choice but to listen to it. And so if you really want to find logos, if you really want to find truth, if you really want to find morality, if you really, really want to find that secret Zion that you think where everything's right, and there's only one word for everything, the only way you will ever, 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 ever get there is deep inside your cockpit. It's the only way. And that's why if you're calling me a Satanist, fine. Maybe other Satanists will take my cue, and they will try and see deeper in their cockpit. Because you cannot be a Satanist and not sit. And sit in your cockpit. You can't. It's too loud. The pelvis makes too much noise. The bones make too much noise. This is why people disassociate in trauma. Because their bones make too much noise. So they leave their bones. I find people evacuated every day, right? I've talked about this a lot. You'll find a woman who's crawled up above her shoulders and she's hiding in her head. You'll find a boy that's crawled down to the edge of his fingers. He's crawled down to the edge of his hips or his knees or his shins, and he's just down there. We hide inside our bodies from ourselves. That's evacuation. And when you're hidden, you're going to look for someone else to run it for you. You're going to look for that service. I want to take a chance to take a minute to say that there's no way this would be happening. This streams would be happening without my Patreon, my patrons. Thank you guys so much for being patrons. There's no way this would be happening. Of course, the super chats are amazing too. Thank you, Katie. I appreciate you. I appreciate you too. Gaia Bear on vacation. Sorry I'm missing this one. We'll rewatch for the gravy. Much love, James. Well, thank you, Gaia Bear. Jim Williams, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for that. Sorry for the show starting off on a bump today. But hey, that's some vitriol for all of us. And just like this week has been, I embrace it all. Even the shit I don't want to embrace, I'll end up embracing. It'll just take me longer, that's all. It'll take me longer. I feel confident that I'll be talking to Owen again one day. I don't feel confident telling you right now when that day will be, but I feel confident that'll happen. It's just a belief in my own circuitry, that's all. It's just that, no, I've got my logic routed here pretty well. It's all good. It's all good. I just want everyone authentic. Be authentic. I won't mind. It'll all come out in the wash. It will. All this math will equal out eventually. All right, guys. Have a great day. If you want to join me on Patreon, I could use the help. I say that because this thing that we're planning with Benjamin Balderson is going to be amazing. And anyone who's able to be a Patreon until October is really going to give me the fuel I need to make that even more amazing. We are planning an event on the new moon of October. I believe that's the 16th. It is in Northern California. It is going to be a campfire to remember. Additionally, this Sunday, I'm having a campfire here in Beach Mountain. If you'd like to participate, I'd like you to email Brent Scheineman because he will tell you if there are slots left and more details about it. It is in a place called Elk Park, North Carolina. If you want to look that up, you can figure out how far or short it is for you to come. It should be a really great time. We'll be talking about, well, the normal things you see us talk about here and more. And yeah, so I don't have the YouTube thing open, so I can't post this, guys, but I'll have it in the comments. But here's Brent's email. I've just posted that in DLive. And if anyone is in DLive and in YouTube, if you want to copy that email, that would be awesome, and post it over there in YouTube. Sorry, YouTube guys, the stream cut and then it didn't rebirth, so I'm not seeing the chats right now as they're coming in. You guys have a wonderful day, and we're going to talk a lot more. We've got some cool stuff coming up, actually. We've got some episodes on mounds. We've got some episodes on the pillars of light and fire. In fact, just to tease you, Nehemiah 9, verse 19. Because of your great compassion, you did not abandon them in the wilderness. By day the pillar of cloud did not fail to guide them on their path, nor the pillar of fire by night to shine on the way they were told to take. You gave your good spirit to instruct them. You did not withhold your manna from their mouths, and you gave them water for their thirst. For 40 years you sustained them in the wilderness. They lacked nothing. Their clothes did not wear out, nor did their feet become swollen. I want us to look at that more. We've talked a lot about the ark as Lord technology, and I find it peculiar that in addition to them being able to survive off manna, that their clothes did not wear out, nor did their feet become swollen. And I'd like to suggest before we go that possibly these people were psychotropically maybe manipulated into thinking that they had been there for 40 days and 40 nights. And I only say that because I can't picture how any kind of technology on earth would like sustain time. Now I know some of you guys were like, yeah, but that's God. And well, that's cool. But if you truly believe in this God in the realm of theism, then you would understand that theism has really made a clear break to say, no, God's outside the world, but he owns the world. So God has to act within the world through these certain means. And these means, there's not a mechanism there which would show that their clothes did not wear out or their feet did not become swollen. The only mechanism that would make that work is if they thought they were in the desert for 40 years. That might also explain how you could survive in the desert with nothing else but manna for 40 years. It's a interesting proposition, isn't it? So we'll be talking about that too. A lot of good gravy coming up. There's just, hey, we had to go through this vitriol. We had to relearn this. I hope that this explains compassion to you more. But honestly, if you didn't know what compassion is before this stream, what I mean by that is this definition of compassion. Is it not being consent? Is it being a way to deeply empathically connect to just another human? I don't think this is gonna be a reality that people are even able to really absorb as their own, and that's okay. It shouldn't be. This is why I don't have 100,000 subscribers, right? This is why every few months someone will say, unsubscribe to him. and this is how this works. This is why our root is so deep. This is why I'm so thankful for the quality of each of you. You guys bring a quality to this stream that frankly, I think is fabulous. I appreciate the intimacy that we have, and I hope that it continues. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening today, and we will talk soon.